Imagine for a moment living without a fridge. It might sound terrifying, right? For most of us, that's a nightmare. We rely on our fridges for everything, from leftovers to ice cream stashes. It's a modern-day necessity. But what if I told you there's a group of people who have lived without refrigeration for centuries and thrived? For the Amish, life without a fridge isn't just a possibility. It's the norm. They've perfected the art of preserving meat without ever needing to plug in a fridge or freezer. And not only that, their methods have been passed down through generations, making their techniques so effective they could actually put your fancy freezer to shame. In a world full of high-tech gadgets and state-of-the-art refrigerators, the Amish stand out for doing things the old-fashioned way. No tech, no refrigeration, just simple, tried-and-true practices that have stood the test of time. They're known for their self-sufficiency, but when it comes to preserving meat, the Amish are in a league all their own. They don't just keep their food edible, they make it last, and it tastes better than anything you've ever pulled out of a freezer. I'll be honest with you, the first time I tried Amish cured ham, I had my doubts. I mean, no fridge? How could it possibly taste fresh, let alone flavorful? But then I took a bite, and the flavor completely blew me away. Smoky, savory, and perfectly preserved. And the best part? It lasted far longer than anything I had ever stored in my own fridge or freezer. If you're thinking, meat without refrigeration must be old and dry, well, think again. The Amish have perfected these preservation methods, not just to keep their meat fresh, but to actually enhance its flavor in a way that no modern-day freezer could ever replicate. Let's take a closer look at one of the most important ingredients in this process: salt. Salt isn't just for seasoning your food, it's been humanity's go-to tool for preserving food for centuries, and the Amish have elevated it to an art form. Salt works wonders in food preservation, especially when it comes to meat. The reason? Salt draws out moisture, and moisture is the enemy of meat. Bacteria thrive in moisture, and salt essentially works as nature's way of kicking out the bacteria and keeping your meat safe and fresh for far longer than you'd think. But here's the catch. Salting meat isn't as simple as just tossing some on top and calling it a day. The Amish have developed a technique that's almost like a sacred ritual. When they prepare meat for preservation, they do so with careful consideration. They select their cuts of meat, whether it's pork, beef, or chicken, and then apply salt liberally. We're talking about coating every inch of the meat, ensuring that every nook and cranny is thoroughly covered. It's almost like giving the meat a luxurious spa treatment, minus the cucumber slices, of course. And here's a fun tidbit. Did you know the phrase, "worth your salt," actually comes from ancient times when salt was considered more valuable than gold? In fact, Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. Can you imagine? Thanks for your service. Here's your salary. In salt. But the Amish tap into this ancient wisdom by treating salt not just as a seasoning, but as a vital life force that helps keep their meat fresh and flavorful for months on end. The first time I saw the salt curing process up close, I couldn't believe how meticulous it was. I thought to myself, if I had to rely on this method for my dinner, I'd probably end up with a block of frozen meat. But the Amish? They've perfected the technique to a science. The end result isn't just edible, it's delicious. The salt seeps deep into the meat, enhancing its natural flavors while protecting it from spoilage. And the beauty of it is that it's so simple. No fridges, no complicated technology, just salt and a lot of patience. While many of us are busy stuffing our meats into fridges and freezers, the Amish allow salt to do the heavy lifting. And this method doesn't just preserve meat, it actually enhances its taste. The longer the salt interacts with the meat, the richer the flavor becomes. It's like an ancient culinary secret, passed down through generations. Each Amish family might have their own twist on this age-old technique, but the results are always the same. Delicious, perfectly preserved meat that tastes far better than anything that's been frozen. But salt alone isn't quite enough to preserve meat, especially in extreme weather conditions or when transporting it over long distances. The Amish know this, which is why they've come up with another brilliant preservation method that takes their meat storage game to the next level. In just a moment, I'll reveal another genius technique that the Amish use to ensure their meat lasts even longer, with a taste so incredible it'll make you question everything you know about modern preservation methods. You won't believe how effective and delicious it is. Keep watching, because this next step is where things get really interesting. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. But wait, just when you thought the Amish couldn't possibly have another trick up their sleeves, they surprise you with something even sweeter, literally. Enter sugar curing. This technique combines the sweetness of sugar with the preserving power of salt, creating a blend that not only gives meat a deliciously sweet and savory flavor, but also extends its shelf life. It's particularly popular for curing hams and bacon, transforming them into something so special, it might just change the way you think about meat preservation forever. The process is as simple as it is effective. The Amish mix sugar with salt, and then rub this delightful concoction into the meat. The sugar, much like salt, works to draw out moisture, and by doing so, it creates the perfect environment for preservation. But here's where the magic happens. The sugar also adds a subtle sweetness to the meat, which pairs beautifully with the saltiness, giving it a flavor profile that's like nothing you've ever tasted before. It's the culinary equivalent of a warm hug on a chilly day. You might think of sugar curing as nature's version of candy-coated bacon, but trust me, this isn't just some sweet, sticky novelty. It lasts far longer than anything you'd find in the grocery store, and it's actually good for you. The first time I tasted sugar-cured bacon, I felt like I'd stumbled upon a secret food group. It was sweet, salty, savory, everything you could want in a breakfast treat. And the best part? It didn't just taste incredible, it also demonstrated the sheer resourcefulness of the Amish and their ability to turn simple ingredients into something extraordinary. Interestingly, sugar curing isn't a new technique. It's actually been used for centuries. The practice dates back to when people first discovered that sugar could do more than just sweeten tea. Over time, the Amish have perfected this method, making it not only a great way to preserve meat, but a fantastic way to enhance the flavor of hams, bacon, and even cuts of pork loin or beef. But there's a balance that needs to be struck. Too much sugar, and you end up with a meat that's more dessert than dinner. Too little, and you lose that wonderful sweetness that makes it so special. The Amish have figured out the perfect ratio, ensuring that every bite is a flavor explosion. But sugar curing isn't without its limits. While it does wonders for flavor and preservation, it can leave the meat with a sticky exterior that might not be ideal for every dish. To address this, the Amish follow up with a drying process, which gives the meat a firmer texture, making it a joy to chew. It's a fascinating combination of techniques that ensures the meat is perfectly preserved and delicious. Now, as if salt and sugar weren't enough, the Amish bring yet another powerhouse into their preservation arsenal: vinegar. That's right, the humble vinegar, usually relegated to salad dressings, plays a starring role in the Amish kitchen. The acidity of vinegar creates an environment where harmful bacteria can't thrive, making it an ideal choice for pickling meats. You'll often find sausages and fish preserved in vinegar brines, giving them a tangy kick that elevates their flavor and makes your taste buds do a little happy dance. Vinegar brining isn't just about preserving the meat. It also infuses it with a distinct tang that's anything but ordinary. The process is simple yet incredibly effective. The Amish mix vinegar with a variety of spices, herbs, and sometimes even a little sugar to create a brine that enhances the meat's natural flavors while keeping bacteria at bay. My own grandmother had a penchant for pickling just about everything: veggies, fruits, and occasionally even meat. One time she decided to try her hand at pickling chicken. Let's just say, the result was an experience. It had that vinegary punch, but it was a bit too adventurous for our family's tastes. At least she had the courage to experiment. What's fascinating about vinegar brining is its versatility. The Amish can tailor their brines with different types of vinegar, like apple cider or white vinegar, each bringing its own unique flavor. And then there are the spices. Dill, garlic, and peppercorns are just a few of the favorites that frequently find their way into the mix. It's a deliciously complex flavor profile that's anything but boring. Vinegar has been used for centuries as a preservative. Ancient Egyptians used it to keep food safe, and Roman soldiers relied on it to prevent spoilage during long campaigns. It's amazing how this simple ingredient has stood the test of time and remains relevant in modern kitchens today. But like any good thing, vinegar brining has its quirks. The acidity can be overwhelming if not balanced just right. Too much vinegar, and your meat could end up tasting like a tangy disaster. Thankfully, the Amish have honed their vinegar brining skills over generations, knowing exactly how to strike that perfect balance. The result? Perfectly brined meat that's flavorful, safe, and delicious. In fact, properly brined vinegar meats can last for several weeks in the fridge, making them a staple in Amish households. These preserved meats often find their way into hearty dishes like casseroles or sandwiches, where their tangy flavor can truly shine. Now, as if sugar, salt, and vinegar weren't enough, the Amish take preservation one step further with rendered lard. This might sound like a lost art to many, but for the Amish, it's a practice steeped in tradition and necessity. The process involves slowly heating animal fat until it melts, separating the liquid lard from the solid bits. But here's where the magic really happens. Once cooked, this melted lard can be poured over cooked meats, creating a thick layer that seals in both flavor and freshness. By encasing the meat in lard, the Amish create an airtight seal, keeping spoilage at bay for months. It's like a culinary time capsule, preserving the meat's taste, texture, and juiciness, while keeping out any bacteria. And the best part? Rendered lard can preserve food for up to 6 months or more, making it an incredibly practical preservation method, especially during the colder months when fresh meat can be harder to come by. Now, if you think the Amish couldn't possibly have more creative methods for preserving meat, think again. They've got a delightful trick up their sleeves that takes preservation to a whole new level: rendered lard. At first, I have to admit, when I heard about storing meat in lard, I pictured my kitchen turning into a greasy mess. Who needs Tupperware when you've got lard, right? But as I learned more, I realized how much grace and ingenuity the Amish bring to this practice. Rendered lard isn't just used for preservation, it also plays a key role in cooking. It's a versatile ingredient that adds richness to dishes while keeping food safe and fresh for months. The process of rendering lard is fairly straightforward, but it does require a little patience. First, the animal fat is carefully cut into small pieces, which helps it melt evenly. Then, the fat is placed in a pot over low heat, where it slowly renders down into a beautiful golden liquid. And those leftover bits? They're called cracklings, and let me tell you, they're a delicious snack all on their own. Who knew that the remnants of rendering fat could taste so good? Interestingly, lard was once the go-to cooking fat before vegetable oils took over, and for good reason. Lard is actually high in monounsaturated fats, which are healthier for you than the trans fats found in many modern processed foods. But over the years, lard developed a bad reputation thanks to health fads that vilified it. The Amish, however, have never given up on its benefits, and they continue to pass down this tradition, utilizing lard not just as a cooking ingredient, but as a key tool in preserving their food. This method speaks volumes about the Amish's commitment to sustainability. By utilizing every part of the animal, nothing goes to waste, and their preservation practices align with their values of simplicity and self-sufficiency. Instead of reaching for plastic wrap or modern storage containers, they turn to the natural richness of rendered lard to seal in the flavors and keep their meats fresh. It's a beautiful example of how the Amish blend practicality with tradition, where every part of the animal is used and nothing is discarded. Now, in the Amish way of life, every corner of the home serves a purpose, even the root cellar. These underground havens are not just for storing vegetables, they play a crucial role in preserving cured meats. Imagine stepping into a cool, dark space that feels like stepping back in time. It's a natural refrigerator that doesn't require a single watt of electricity. The consistent low temperatures and humidity levels inside a root cellar create the perfect environment for slowing down spoilage and keeping meats fresh for longer, all without the need for chemical preservatives. I remember one time when my neighbor tried to build a root cellar. Let's just say, it didn't turn out quite as planned. His root cellar ended up being a muddy pit that attracted more raccoons than anything else. Not exactly the dinner companions I'd prefer, right? But the Amish have mastered the art of root cellars, ensuring that their food stays safe while keeping critters out. With careful construction and ventilation, they maintain the perfect balance inside these root cellars, keeping their hard-earned meats fresh and flavorful. Inside these root cellars, cured meats hang freely, allowing air to flow around them and preventing moisture buildup. This airflow is essential for stopping spoilage and maintaining the quality of the meat. You might wonder how these unassuming, humble structures can preserve meat for months. The secret lies in the temperature. Ideally, a root cellar maintains a temperature between 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius. This cool environment, combined with the darkness, helps slow down the enzymatic reactions and bacterial growth that are responsible for food spoilage. It's a perfect blend of nature's wisdom and old-world knowledge, preserving food without any modern technology. Interestingly, root cellars have been used for centuries, and they're not unique to the Amish. Many cultures have relied on them for food storage, and archaeological findings show that root cellars date back to ancient civilizations. Yet, the Amish have continued this tradition, blending practicality with an appreciation for sustainable living. It's not just about preserving meat. It's about preserving a way of life that honors the land and its resources. It's a deep connection to nature, where every food storage method is carefully thought out to ensure minimal waste and maximum preservation. And the beauty of root cellars doesn't end with meats. The cool, moist environment is also ideal for storing vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and even apples. Some Amish families take it a step further by creating their own mini food pyramids, stacking vegetables and meats to take advantage of every inch of space. It's like a treasure hunt every time they open the door, with new discoveries waiting to be made. But root cellars aren't the only tool in the Amish preservation toolbox. When winter rolls around, the Amish have yet another method that's as simple as it is brilliant: outdoor freezing. As temperatures drop well below freezing, the cold air becomes their ally in the quest to keep meat fresh. Imagine this: a large chunk of meat carefully prepared and laid out in the frigid outdoor air, effectively turning the backyard into a giant freezer. No electricity bills, no complicated machinery, just pure, natural freezing. The Amish have long understood the power of nature, using those biting cold temperatures to their advantage. After a successful butchering season, families will often hang larger cuts of meat outside to let the cold air preserve it. Incredibly, this method helps keep the meat safe from spoilage for weeks, sometimes even months. It's a reliable, no-cost method for long-term storage that the Amish have relied on for generations. And can you imagine the neighbors watching, thinking, wow, those Amish folks really know how to make winter work for them? Of course, there's a catch. When using outdoor freezing, the weather has to be just right. Too much snow or rain can affect the quality of the meat. To combat this, the Amish often cover the meat with burlap or other breathable materials, ensuring it stays dry and protected while still benefiting from the cold temperatures. What's even more fascinating is that freezing meat at extremely low temperatures actually improves its texture and flavor. The ice crystals that form during freezing help break down muscle fibers, resulting in a more tender piece of meat when it's finally cooked. It's like a natural marinade courtesy of Mother Nature herself. And of course, let's not forget the fun side of this method. Picture this: kids bundled up in their winter gear, running outside to check on the meat, probably bickering over who gets to bring in the ham or sausage. A snowball fight might break out along the way, but at the end of the day, it's a family affair. Just imagine the joy and laughter, even as they're working together to preserve the food they'll enjoy all season long. The way the Amish integrate food preservation into their daily lives is truly remarkable. They plan ahead for winter, ensuring that they have enough supplies to last through the colder months. It's not just about preserving food, it's about self-sufficiency and resourcefulness. As they prepare hearty meals for their families, the Amish appreciate the simplicity of using what nature provides. One traditional preservation method the Amish have perfected is drying meat. The idea is simple. Strip the moisture from the meat, which inhibits bacteria growth, making it last longer. Imagine hanging long strips of seasoned meat in a warm, dry place, and just like that, it's transformed into tasty jerky that can last for months. Drying meat isn't just about preservation, though. It's an art form. The Amish understand how to balance the right temperature and humidity to achieve perfectly dried meat. They often hang the meat in well-ventilated barns, or even outdoors on warm, sunny days, letting nature do its work. The result is a product that's ready for snacking, cooking, or even gifting to friends and family. But what's even more fascinating is that dried meat can be rehydrated later for soups and stews, making it a versatile option for meals. It's like the Amish version of meat multitasking, getting the most out of every cut. Who wouldn't want a product that serves as both a quick snack and a hearty meal ingredient? Now, let's talk about the satisfaction of biting into a piece of jerky that's been seasoned just right. You know, the kind of jerky that's so tough you could practically use it to hammer nails? That's a culinary disaster. But Amish jerky is different. It's full of flavor, perfectly chewy, and utterly satisfying. You can almost hear your taste buds dancing in delight when you think about it. When we think about preserving food, we often picture jars of jam or fresh fruits lined up in a pantry. But the Amish have taken this concept to a whole new level with pressure canning, especially for meats. They've mastered a method that allows them to seal meat in jars, ensuring it stays safe and tasty for years. It's like having a secret weapon for dinner. No more last-minute trips to the store for supplies. This process isn't just for your grandma's peaches. It's a life hack for meat lovers. By sealing meat in jars and cooking it under high pressure, the Amish create an airtight environment that kills off any bacteria and ensures longevity. It's a practical approach to food preservation, especially for large families or during harvest time, when there's an abundance of meat to process. I remember my friend's family used to can everything during the summer, with an entire shelf dedicated to beef and chicken that could probably survive a zombie apocalypse. Here's an interesting tidbit. Properly canned meat can last anywhere from 3 to 5 years when stored in cool conditions. That's longer than some of my friendships. While the rest of us are constantly checking expiration dates, the Amish are chilling with their canned goods, confident that a meal is just a twist of the lid away. The pressure canning process is quite remarkable. The Amish prep their meat, fill the jars, and place them in a pressure cooker. As the temperature rises, it creates an environment that not only preserves the meat, but also locks in its flavors. It's a little like magic. One moment you've got raw meat, and the next, you're holding a jar of hearty beef stew ready to go at a moment's notice. I used to think canning was an old-fashioned pastime, but seeing the Amish do it has changed everything. They've turned it into an art form. Families gather to share tips, recipes, and stories while they work. It's not just about food, it's about tradition, family, and sharing a piece of their heritage. You can almost smell the savory dishes wafting from those jars just thinking about it. While pressure canning is a fantastic way to ensure a long-term supply of meat, the Amish have a few more ingenious methods, especially handy when winter hits. When you hear the word pemmican, you might think of a trendy new health food, but this is the real deal. Pemmican is an age-old recipe crafted by the Amish, blending dried meat, rendered fat, and sometimes even berries, rooted in Native American traditions. It's a powerhouse of energy, perfect for long-term storage. Imagine being out in the woods with nothing but your trusty pemmican, living the survivalist dream. I once thought I could whip up a batch of pemmican to have on hand for busy days. I pictured it as a delicious homemade energy bar, something I could grab on the go. Spoiler alert, I ended up with a gloppy mess that tasted more like regret than anything edible. Meanwhile, the Amish have mastered this ancient craft. Each batch is like a mini miracle of preservation and nourishment. What makes pemmican such a fantastic food? The combination of dried meat and rendered fat creates a long-lasting energy source. It's like packing an entire camping trip's worth of nutrition into a single bite. Whether you're out in the field needing something to sustain you, or simply looking for a nutritious snack, pemmican has you covered. Just don't ask me to make it for you. I'll leave that to the pros. Here's a fun fact. Pemmican can last for years without spoiling, especially if stored in a cool, dry place. That's longer than my last relationship. It's packed with protein and healthy fats, making it the kind of food that keeps you going. It might not make the menu at your local restaurant, but trust me, If the lights go out and the world goes sideways, you'll wish you had a pantry stocked with this stuff. The Amish often incorporate berries into their pemmican, adding a little sweetness and a boost of vitamins. I remember when my neighbor tried to impress us with his version. He thought he'd add a gourmet twist by tossing in some chocolate chips. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. But the Amish know just the right balance, ensuring that every bite of pemmican is both nutritious and tasty, a testament to their culinary wisdom. From salt to pemmican, the Amish demonstrate that you don't need modern appliances to keep your meat fresh. Their methods are timeless, practical, and a little bit magical. It's impressive how they've perfected the art of food preservation, relying on nature and traditional techniques instead of the latest gadgets. After all, who knew you could outsmart bacteria with a dash of salt, a bit of smoke, and some clever thinking? In a world where convenience often trumps tradition, the Amish remind us that sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and that's how the Amish preserve meat for months without the need for refrigeration. It's truly amazing how they use traditional techniques to make the most of their resources and live off the land. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible insights into the Amish way of life. Speaking of living without modern conveniences, in our next video, we dive into how the Amish heat their homes without relying on gas or electricity. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Just click on the video right here to learn all about it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.